This is Ari Koretsky, and welcome to Jews You Should Know, introducing the broader community to interesting and inspiring Jewish men and women making a difference in our world. Some are already famous, some not yet so, but each is a Jew you should know. We are here with Ashley Blaker, comedian, who lately has been all over the news, certainly the Jewish publication circuit, advertising an upcoming tour. I believe it's off-Broadway or on Broadway or something to do with Broadway, which we'll get to. But welcome, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Doing wonderful. First of all, where are you going to be performing? We're here in May of 2018, a big tour coming up. Where is that going to be?
Basically, in just a few days' time from when we're recording this. So Sunday, May 27th, I open, as you rightly said, off-Broadway, which means basically what a lot of people don't know what off-Broadway even means. So off-Broadway basically is a theater that's under 500 seats. That's what it basically means.
Ah, okay.
Off-Broadway is under 100. But anyway, so this is so off-Broadway, but actually, as you rightly said, on Broadway, because my theater is on Broadway and 50th. So it's like right in the middle. It's amazing, like right in the middle of the theater district. You got like Hamilton, and you got the Lion King, and Phantom of the Opera, and then you've got an awning with this guy who looks like a rabbi on it, and people are wandering past going, what the hell's that? Why is there this rabbi? And why has he got a woman's name as well? That's even
Well, I didn't want to be too impolitic since we just met, but I was going to ask you, is that like a British thing? Because I think you are British. Is Ashley like, there's a different time zone over there and maybe a different name zone?
This is so annoying. I just did an interview with the New York Post, and I was talking about this. They get asked about this a lot. So basically, but number one, in the UK, Ashley is almost entirely a man's name. Okay, so like any, all the famous Ashleys in the UK would be men.
And of course, you could say that, and I wouldn't be able to correct you. So that's great.
Exactly. But this is you know what? This is the really annoying thing. Okay, so my mother is a very big fan, was at the time before I was born, a very big fan of the movie Gone with the Wind, okay? And there's any listeners who have seen Gone with the Wind will know, or read the book, will know there's a character in it called Ashley, okay? Is Ashley a man or a woman in that film, in that movie? It's a man. It's a man, right? So, and you know what? Even worse, Gone with the Wind is an American movie. Right? And it's an American book. So basically, sometime between 1975, when I was born, right, and now, somebody in America sat down and went, you know what? We've had enough of Ashley being a man's name. Let's change it to a woman's name and make my life difficult.
It sounds like it was really personal.
Yeah, I'm taking it personal. This is ridiculous. I wouldn't even mind it. One thing if Gone with the Wind was an English-British movie. It doesn't make any sense. I'm really fed up with it.
Well, I'm glad we put that to rest, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was kind of the elephant in the room, and I was sort of afraid to mention it. But
the other thing is my Hebrew name is Hanan. Okay, so I go to a very, very, very super strict synagogue, and they refuse to acknowledge non-Hebrew names. So even when I get a shul, like the membership dues letter, it'll have on it Mr. C. Blaker. And this is actually really good, because my rabbi, I can do whatever I like. Because if you went to my rabbi and said, do you know this guy, Ashley Blaker? He would say, no, I've never heard of him. I know Hanan Blaker. He said, I don't know Ashley Blaker. I can just do whatever I like. And if someone says, oh, Ashley Blaker said something, I can say, oh, I don't know who he is.
It's your alter ego.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, or Hanan, if you will, you obviously, again, by accent and by association, did not grow up in the United States where I'm here recording. You grew up in Britain. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? What was your upbringing like?
So I grew up in a suburb of North London. And religiously, so in America, because it's obviously such a big country, such a hugely diverse range of Jews and what have you. Britain is much smaller. There's only 250,000 Jews in the whole of the UK. And the vast majority of them actually would be what I suppose we would call kind of like traditional Orthodox. So basically, they affiliate with Orthodox. that's their, they would pray from a kind of art scroll siddur, kind of thing, prayer. That's it. They're not reformed. They're not kind of anything, not non-Orthodox that way. But so you go to synagogue most weeks, most Sabbath mornings, what have you. And then you come home and you put the TV on, or you go to the mall and what have you. And that's the kind of upbringing I had. Very traditional in that way. We took off all the Jewish holidays. And you know what? I must be honest with you, there are times I actually really miss that kind of shul life, actually. Going to that kind of much more observant synagogues, in a way, I actually do miss that kind of huge range of people you would get. I think there's something very special actually about that kind of community where you get all kinds of people. I will come back to that actually maybe I like performing that's one of the great pleasures I have in life, is actually performing and engaging with a huge range of people. But in terms of my upbringing, yes, that's the kind of upbringing I had. I actually went to a non-Jewish school. It's something very funny. I talk about this, not in my American show, but in another show I'm doing. I talk about this. Only the Jews, with 250,000 of us in a country of 60 million, right? Only the Jews would go around calling everyone else the non-Jews.
It's a fair observation.
Yeah, brilliant. Everyone else are non-Jews. We're like 4% of the country. Anyway, so, but yeah, and actually, funnily enough, I went to a school which there were something like 35-40% Jews, but you would have thought it was 90%. And actually, even like the non-Jewish people called themselves honorary Jews, and it was that kind of school. It's like they had like prayers at lunchtime, whatever, and it was very, very accommodating. But I was at school with a lot of very confident, pushy, cocky, chutzpahdik North London Jewish kids. So that's a preparation for
sure. So obviously, it sounds like you made some kind of a, I guess, religious transition in your life. When did that take place for you? What was the impetus for that?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. We weren't like, how like some people say, I got involved with this move, went to Israel on a birthright. I didn't have that experience at all. Basically, my wife and I got married. And in the UK, if you get married in like an Orthodox synagogue, they give you a free membership for a year to your nearest shul. Okay, so like, if somebody gives me something, I want to make a bit of use of it, So I thought one week, I'm not doing anything this morning. I'll go over to the synagogue and see what it's like. So this rabbi, his name's Rabbi David Lister, and he's the smiliest, happiest man you ever met. My father always said he knows something we don't, because this man is always smiling. And he runs off the bimmer and says, who are you? Whatever. He's incredible. And I'm very, I'm influenced by kind of, I really enjoyed it. Anyway, the week later I went back, and he obviously thought, you know what? I've got one here. So he said to me, what are you doing this afternoon? Because, the afternoon prayers, we don't always get a minyan, we don't always get enough people. What are you up to? And I hate saying no. I'm terrible at saying no. I mean, you emailed me and said, will I come on a podcast? I say straight away, yes. I'm terrible at saying no. I hate to disappoint people. So I said, yeah, okay, fine. You know what? I'll try and come along. I came along, and he said to me, what are you doing on Sunday morning? Because we struggle for numbers on a Sunday morning.
Starting to catch on here, the pattern.
Yeah. And so anyway, like an idiot, I went. And then he said to me, so what are you doing Monday morning? At the end of the week, I was going to every service. I was in. I was kind of hooked. They start you with, be careful, kids, be careful, you can get hooked. And then a few weeks later, I looked like this. I mean, basically, a shortened version, but it pretty much was a bit like that.
It's just a pretty organic process, you would say.
Yeah, no, so it was kind of like, and the truth is, genuinely, I think the key thing is just to keep that growth and to always feel that you're moving in the right direction, even though, there's kind of bumps along the way and what have you, but at least you kind of feel that you're moving in a positive way. So like, it's been a real period of growth and movement and whatever. And my wife and I, we're kind of like, we're the kind of people, we're not very good at just like staying still and just saying, oh, we're happy now, this is enough. We're kind of always kind of like challenging ourselves, thinking, what else can we do? What's the next step? And I think like personally and professionally, that's been a really big part of our lives over the last 15 years or so.
Did your wife grow up in a similar environment?
Yeah, pretty similar, if not even slightly less observant. But yeah, really. And then let's say even comedically, like in all the things that I've done, it's like, what next? It's not enough. Let's not rest on our laurels. Let's do something crazy. Let's go and see if this would work. Maybe it'll fail, but let's see.
So were you interested in comedy early on? I mean, I don't think of British private schools, if you will, as very funny places. They sound to be like rather stodgy.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. I didn't go to a boarding school, but they are, because I mean, like, all those kind of people like Monty Python and all those kind of, that's like the product of that kind of education. Because if you spend your life with authority, and Monty Python had loads of sketches about school and authority. I think half of like Python sketches are about like authority figures and whether it's vicars or school chaplains or teachers or military men who are coming out saying, stop it, it's got a bit too silly. There's something very fun. British people are very good at kind of looking at authority and kind of laughing at it in a way. But yeah, no, I was very interested, and we had to have a careers meeting. I remember when we were like 15, 16, it was going to like determine what, like, if you went in and basically and said, I want to be a doctor, they would say, okay, so for your, what we call A levels, which are like the subjects you do in your last 2 years, like senior, junior year, they say, okay, you should do maybe maths, chemistry, and biology. So I went into this meeting, I said, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And I was doing comedy shows in the lunchtime for like all the kids. And I was actually on the circuit. I was on the comedy circuit, professional circuit in London when I was 16. And I did gigs with people like Eddie Izzard and Lee Evans and shared the bills, like really big names. And I was all right. I wasn't bad. For a 16-year-old, I think I was pretty good. I mean, I look back now and I realize, like, I didn't really, at that age, you're too young. All you can really do is, I guess, imitate the people you like. And interestingly, maybe we'll get on to this, I had to actually become observant in order to find the things that I really wanted to talk about and to find that persona. So it was a real kind of like what we would call mina shamayim. It was like a real like heaven sent kind of thing, like one of those real signs of like, God runs the world, because I could really see like this divine presence in my life, because it's actually only as a result. Every single thing I'm doing now is only the result of having become observant.
So what did you do? I imagine that they looked at you kind of funny when you said stand-up comedy. What coursework do they suggest for that?
Yeah, well, I went to, so I was doing all that stuff. And then I went to Oxford University to read history. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you're aware, but there's an incredible history of British comedians, like all the Pythons and all those kind of people, but through to John Oliver and Sacha Baron Cohen.
I just know that the original Office was there. Yeah,
all those kind of people, right? So all those guys, they all went to Oxford and Cambridge, and they all did comedy. They were involved with something called the Cambridge Footlights or the Oxford Review, and they went up to places like Oxford and Cambridge thinking, I'm going to be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, and they got seduced by the comedy. And I'm a psychic nonconformist. I basically did the exact opposite. So I really thought I was going to go up and just do comedy. And I got seduced by the work. So I ended up doing my history degree at Oxford. And then I went to Cambridge to do a PhD in the dullest, I'll tell you, listeners will fall asleep. I'm just telling you the title of my PhD thesis. But I'll tell you, the doctrine and liturgy of parish clergy removed Philaudianism 1641 to 1642 and their impact on religion in the parishes in the decade in the Long Parliament.
I actually did 1642 to 43, so we should really talk.
Basically, it was, so it's basically about pre-Civil War, British, English Civil War religion. But, and then what happened was I left. I mean, this is so, I don't know how much you go into these kind of things normally, but I really, and I don't want to be preachy by any means. I mean, I can only talk about my own experience and my own take on stuff, but I've seen so much like divine providence in my life, because I left Cambridge. I had no idea what to do.
Did you finish the doctorate?
I wrote up 70,000. I got a bit bored of it. And I wrote up 60,000 and got an MPhil, which is a Master of Philosophy. and I had no idea what to do next. And I went out for a drink. It's a Thursday evening, okay? And I went out for a drink in a pub, very British thing to do, with a couple of former teachers from my high school. And I was moaning, saying, well, I don't know what to do with my life because I've got no experience. I know how to read handwritten vestry minutes, 17th century handwritten vestry minutes. But apart from that, I haven't really got that many life skills. And one of them said to me, why don't you look in this thing called the Media Guardian? I had no idea what it was. I said, what's that? I don't know what that is. So basically, there's one of the biggest broadsheet newspapers in the UK, the Guardian newspaper, quite a left-wing reputation. Wasn't the kind of paper we read in our house. We were a Daily Telegraph family. But he says it's a paper, they have a media section and it has jobs in the media. He said, I think it comes out on Monday. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's Monday. Anyway, so this is Thursday night. 4 days later on Monday, I went out and bought The Guardian for the first time in my life. The media section's there. I open it up. There's an advert that says, do you have funny bones? The BBC needs trainee comedy producers. And I thought, okay, that looks interesting. I applied. I started work there at the BBC 10 weeks later. And you know what? This is totally true. That advert was only in the paper for 1 week. I was buying it, despite the fact that 4 days earlier, I'd never even heard of the paper. And I bought the paper every single week for those 10 weeks before I started work. I didn't even apply for one other job. There was literally never a job that was suitable for me. So, like, incredible. And then, if that's not enough, right? So then, a week, but it was only a 6-month contract. And basically, like they said, we'll keep you on if you, prove your worth, maybe bring in some business, whatever. So a week before, I'm walking in the centre of London, and I bump into somebody I was very good friends with at school, but we kind of drifted apart a little bit, a man called Matt Lucas. Now, those listeners who know a lot about British comedy, or even, so they'll definitely have heard of Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas is he's in Bridesmaids with Rebel Wilson's brother. They live together in Bridesmaids. He's in Doctor Who. If you're a Doctor Who fan, he played Nardole in the last series and a half. Anyway, so he's very famous for a show called Little Britain, which is the most successful sketch show the BBC has ever made, shown in like 154 countries, which I produced. And I'm walking down the street, bump into him. He says to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm just about to start this new job. I said, what are you up to? He said, my friend and me, we're not sure, things haven't really worked out, wondering whether we should go our separate ways. I said, listen, I've got this new job at the BBC. I need to do something. Why don't we do something? We could make a show together. And basically, if I'd not bumped into him that day, like we were meeting, we could have met any time over the last 3 years. We lived in the same city, but we were meeting at precisely the moment that would have, basically our whole lives changed at that moment.
Incredible. So what did you do with that? Did you go on to produce a show with him?
So basically, yeah. So he said, let's do this show. So the show, we met, I remember I started work on October the 18th, 1999. We piloted the show on the 20th of January. It was like, so 3 months later. And yeah, it became the most successful, commercially the most successful comedy show the BBC's ever made, even more than The Office. I mean, this show is like, it ended up, it's on BBC America, Netflix. They made an American version for HBO. And they made millions, and I'm having a talk to you on a.
I'm sure you got a cut, Ashley.
I misread the fine small print. Basically, I spent yay many years working, at least in comedy. I was a producer and a writer, and I worked with loads of pretty much everyone who's anyone in British comedy. In terms of an American context, Russell Brand, James Corden, John Oliver, pretty much everyone. But as behind the camera, Graham Norton, I'm writing monologues and writing lots of comedians' monologues and producing shows. So it started at one point, I was just keeping Shabbos. And then a bit later, I actually started wearing a skull cap to work. Then I started wearing the sitzes, and at first they were tucked in. Then I felt confident, I left them out. Then my payers, the side locks grew a bit longer. Then I was wearing a black hat, and I was walking around, by this point, the BBC wearing a black hat and what have you. And I got a phone call one day, or an email, I think it was, from a guy called Rabbi Nissan Wilson. And he was a local rabbi in London. And he said he was inviting me to come and speak at his shul, the synagogue. They were having a malava malka, which is a Saturday night meal, basically after the Sabbath, a communal meal. They always have a speaker, and he said he wanted me to come and speak. And you'd normally have, as you know, you'd normally have like a rabbi, someone learned to come and tell over, so give some inspirational message. I said, what do you want me to say? I've got nothing to say. And he said, no, you know what? I've heard about you, and I understand that you work with all these famous people, and yet you're this guy who looks like a rabbi, and you don't work on the Sabbath, and you keep kosher, and you don't, do this, and you don't do that. It sounds amazing. Like, that's such an interesting story. I'm sure people would be interested to hear about this. I said, all right, okay, fine. I didn't even ask for any money. I just went. I think he gave me a bottle of whiskey, actually, but whatever.
Before or after?
So, yeah. And I did it. And you know what? It went well, and people were interested. And he obviously recommended me because lots of other people were in touch going, would you come and speak here? And every time I did it, it was a bit like, I liken it to if you were like an alcoholic and you had a, recovering alcoholic, recovered alcoholic, and then you had a drink for the first time, or you were smoking, you had a drag on a cigarette for the first time. I'd forgotten how much fun it was to stand in front of a room and you say something funny and they laugh, and it's very addictive. And every time I did it, I thought of more funny things I could say. And it basically, each time I did it, it was becoming more like comedy instead of a speech. And at one point I just thought, you know what would be really interesting? Maybe I could rewrite this talk, just turn it into stand-up, get rid of the lectern, come out, hold a microphone, and get rid of all the things that isn't interesting and isn't funny, and just do comedy. And yeah, like real serendipity. Just what I discovered was there was no one really doing what I was doing. There was no one, maybe even the world, really, who was talking about the kind of things I was talking about the experience of being, whatever you want to call it, like strictly Orthodox Jewish person, but we're living in the working in among, the secular world. Talking about, I got like a whole routine, for example, about the issues of not shaking hands at work and all these, a long routine about it. And it was like, it opened up this entire, like a box. It's like the fun of opening a box that had never been opened and discovering all this material inside. It's an amazing thing. And again, it all happened because of the way my life had changed.
It does sound like an incredible amount of serendipity and, as you say, divine providence. I want to drill down a little bit into your comedy, because comedy means a lot of different things, to different people. And so to begin with, what really do you think draws you to comedy? In other words, what about it is calling you? What's sort of the deeper pull, or the deeper aspiration that is at the heart of your love affair with that medium?
I think that's just in your blood. I mean, I think that's just how you're made. It's like, it's a bit like saying what makes you feel like a certain food, or what makes you, it's just, that is how I'm made. My first instinct, no matter how it ever happens, my first instinct is always to make a joke. Like something, like, I was really upset a few months ago because one of our kittens, we have some cats, and one of our kittens got run over. And don't laugh. Don't laugh. No, and anyway, but seriously, I've taken the cat off the road. I was really upset. And literally the first thought that came into my mind was, oh, I'll have to say cattish. And like, it's not even, but like, that's my first instinct. My second instinct is to be upset. It's like, I have to there are some people, that's how I'm made. It's like, my first instinct is always, because it's like, I'm never off duty. It's like that. It's just the way my brain is wired.
Has that ever gotten you into trouble?
Oh yeah, definitely. It really has, definitely. Yeah, I have to kind of, and luckily I have awareness enough to go, although that's my first thought, I don't need to always say my thought. Okay.
That whole filter thing.
Yeah, no, you have to have enough seichel to actually know when to not actually say the thought out loud.
Well, it is interesting because, talking about a filter, I think so much of comedy is dominated by those who traffic in shock value and, the ability to use, dirty jokes, so to speak, and to be able to use innuendo and or explicit language and imagery to create their humor. I would imagine that's something you probably avoid. If so, is that something that's become integral to your identity as a comedian?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's a great. I mean, the thing is, a few points. Number one, obviously, for sure, there's no, there are subjects. It's not so much. I avoid is the wrong word. There are subjects that I don't. There's subjects that many comedians talk about that I don't, and there is language that many comedians use that I don't. That is not. I'm not avoiding it though, because I don't use it in my actual life. So I wouldn't. It's not like I'm standing on stage going, "Oh, I wish I could say this," or I'm really trying hard to restrain myself. I don't curse in my day-to-day life, so I'm certainly not going to do it on a stage. But I actually think what's great is the opportunity to show that that's not necessary. I think so many people have said to me, "Oh, it's so refreshing to see a comedian who isn't vulgar or isn't using." Not that, I don't want to say it's critical of anyone else. I mean, I don't, I don't care if people do that. But people have said that to me. They can say they're so refreshed to see that. And I think what's really also really interesting is that when I worked like at the BBC and stuff like that, is that people would often swear in front of me. And they would immediately go, "Oh, I'm really sorry. And I'd say, "I don't care. I've never said I don't mind you. I mind you doing that. You don't need to apologize." And they'd often say to me, "No, I notice you don't. And it always makes me a little bit self-conscious if I swear in front of you. So I just apologize." And then they don't do it again. And again, I don't want to sound too preachy, but it's really struck me like what an amazing opportunity that is to kind of make a Kiddush Hashem, to show Jews in a good light. Because obviously I'm for a lot of people I'll be the only Orthodox Jew, certainly the only like ultra Orthodox Jew they've ever met, and so the opportunity to kind of show that like we behave in a good way, I think that's really special. In the same way, like when I was a producer, like producers have got like a real reputation for like shouting and shouting at people and tearing strips off researchers and assistants and runners, and I'd never do that because I just know that like I've got to make sure I behave the absolutely the best I can.
In terms of the sort of the style or quality, again, avoiding the vulgar, or not avoiding it as you put, but that not being part of your vocabulary. Do you have any comedic role models? I think in the U.S., Brian Regan comes to mind as, a consummate professional who's really entirely clean. Are there any comedians that are models to you in that sense?
No. But I say that because I think this is a really important point to make, is that I wouldn't kind of like see this whole thing about clean or this comedian is clean or that comedian is clean implies that there's a kind of subset that you have to, in some way you're like having to restrict, that it's some kind, it's like it's a restriction. I almost don't like talking about it because it's kind of like, it's implying that I'm restricted. Far from it. I'm talking about stuff that other people aren't able to talk about. Because they don't know about because they don't have that experience. Because they don't have the experience of going into a meeting and that hand gets put in front of you and you're thinking what to do, or they don't have all the experiences that I have. They don't live in my shoes. So I've been blessed with a whole new, different set of, I don't need to worry about that because I've been blessed with a whole different set of comedy of material and subject matter and language and stuff. So, no, and I think also the other thing that's really important to me is to basically whatever I do, is to essentially to kind of have the production values and the quality of the secular, non-Jewish, whatever it. I think that's really important. And I think that's really important to me. I've basically spent 20 years working with, the highest level of comedy, and is to transpose that to the Jewish material I'm doing now. A lot of Jewish entertainment, and I don't say this; it'll sound like criticism, but it's not necessarily criticism. It just is what it is very Hamish. It doesn't have that production value of, you could never, there's a lot of Jewish music, not all of it, but a lot of Jewish music, for example, you would look at and listen to, and you could never imagine that this had the same producer that like Ed Sheeran has or something. Like it's just a different world. And I think the important thing is that I don't want, and that's also why I don't really do I don't play synagogues. I'm not doing that. I want to be there on Broadway. That this is like going to see anyone else, that it's got those production values, because you know what, you do a thing in a show, right? There's a ceiling of how good that can be, of that experience. I so want to give the audience an experience that you can't so much work has to go into creating that experience.
It's interesting because you referenced that your life experience, your personal journey, has really provided the fodder for your comedic material. But given that that is the case, how does that material then relate to non-Jewish audiences or audiences that even are maybe Jewish but don't share in those life experiences? And so to them, they're like, they don't even maybe get the references.
No. Yeah. Okay, so that's good question. So with regards to the different answers, the Jewish audiences, one of the things that I'm so proud of, I really am, is that I perform for such a range of people. And let's talk about the Jewish audiences. Such a range of Jewish audiences. I do a show, and you will have women in shaitels, wigs, men with long beards, black hats, all the way through to the completely unaffiliated, to the progressive, the liberal, the reform, the complete range. And I'm really proud of the fact I've been on stage and actually looked down and thought to myself, you know what? I literally cannot think of one other circumstance that you would get these people in the same room. There is no other time. I did a show in Newcastle in the northeast of England, and she's very near Gateshead. Sure, you've heard of Gateshead. It's like the last shtetl of Europe. They have like lots of yeshiva and Torah centers and seminaries and what have you. And I did a show there, and these there was this whole row of guys who'd come from Gateshead, like seriously observant guys. And then sitting next to them was this female reform rabbi from a town like 20 miles up the road or whatever. I'm thinking, when do these people don't come together? You don't, and it's great that humor can bring people together. People who aren't Jewish often think, oh, Jews, they all get along, obviously, that you're all Jews. No, that's not the case. That actually there's nothing, we are such a divided people. We love kind of putting up barriers between us. Oh, the old joke about the guy on the island who builds the two shuls, the one I go to and the one I wouldn't be seen dead in. We love dividing ourselves. And so it's amazing that humor can bring Jews together. I love that fact. Now, with regards to the non-Jewish audience, I've just done a BBC show, my own BBC show, called Ashley Blaker's Goyish Guide to Judaism. And I'm also going to Edinburgh Festival this year with a show for non-Jews called Ashley Blaker Observant Jew. And basically, I use a lot of the same material. Obviously, it just needs some of it wouldn't work, but I need to just have a huge level of, obviously, language, needs to make sure that everything is explained in the language they can understand, but also with explanation. What is hilarious to me, is really funny, is often the explanation I was discovering when I've done this. I did like my BBC show, and I noticed that the audience often were laughing just at the explanation. It's not even material, but they find it so funny. Now, I'll give you an example. I got a routine about what we call a Shabbos goy, which is, it's basically like if you leave your light on in your bedroom. Let's say you leave your light off in the dining room. It's completely dark. You're not allowed to turn it on the Sabbath, but you can go and find somebody we call a Shabbos goy who's allowed to come in and do it for you. Someone who's not Jewish, they're allowed to come in. And I'm explaining this in the show, and I said to them, now we're not allowed to ask, but we are allowed to hint. And I am not joking, the laughter, because it sounds so funny. And I realized that actually that there was mileage just in the explanation.
I can absolutely hear how that would come off to a crowd. And just so I don't get in too much trouble here, obviously that's a bit of a caricature, right? We know that the laws aren't quite so simple like that, and that technically we can't actually hint in most cases. That's a whole other fascinating topic, and make sure to ask a rabbi before acting on that. All right, now I've covered my bases there. Ashley, other examples where like the process or just the explanation itself could be entertaining to an unlettered audience?
Again, something we take for completely, you would take for granted, is the idea of selling your chametz, all the stuff you're not allowed to eat at Pesach, at Passover, to a non-Jewish person. And like there's this one guy in your town who's like the biggest owner of whiskey in the whole of like London. This guy owns more whiskey, he's got the best collection of alcohol, like better than the Queen. This guy's got like, but he can't touch it. And he's acquired it for $1. But only for 8 days.
Are you ever accused, or how do you avoid venturing into, irreverence or, what might be considered mockery, and rather, obviously, I'm sure your goal is to make light, but also to inspire on some level through the humor. How do you avoid venturing into maybe over the border into irreverence? And have you ever been accused of that?
Yeah, you know what? I have once or twice, and actually, I'll tell you a funny story in a minute. But I once spoke about it with not my rabbi now, but somebody a rabbi who I learnt with every day for we had like a daily learning together for like over 10 years. And he said to me, and I passed on like a critical call I'd had or email, whatever. And he said to me, look, you should take your Judaism very seriously, but you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. And he was basically saying there are some people who do unfortunately take themselves rather too seriously. Of course, there's a line that you shouldn't go beyond. And I hope I don't go beyond that line. But, I do think that I'm not saying dismissing every criticism of just being, he takes himself too seriously. But I'll tell you a great example. I was doing a thing, performing at a dinner for a synagogue. This was in America. I won't say where, but they booked me to perform at their like gala dinner thing, whatever. I get a phone call from the rabbi. Now, funny thing is, a lot of comedians will tell you if they do a thing for a synagogue, they'll get a call from the rabbi. Normally to go through what you can and can't say, don't swear, don't do this. I always get the opposite. Seriously, this is totally true. I'll get a phone call and they'll go, look, please don't use too much Yiddish. They're not so, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Every other comedian in the world is told, keep it clean. I'm told, be a bit less clean. That was the kind of call I was expecting. But anyway, this rabbi rings me. He said to me, I've watched some of your videos on your website. And he said, there's a couple I really, really had an issue with. And I was really like, wow, I was like racking my brains. I can't even imagine which one. And he said to me, there's a routine you do about the difference between Jewish and non-Jewish New Year. And he said, I've got a real issue with it. And I said, why? And he said, you know what? He said, my community, I feel if they hear that kind of thing, you're saying like Rosh Hashanah is, it's really hard work, they'll just go, yeah, we don't want to do it anymore. I was thinking, wow, now come on. I mean, I didn't say it, but I was thinking, wow, if you've got such an issue with your community that you think hearing a 5-minute routine from me on how tough Rosh Hashanah is going to make them all just go, right, yeah, we're not doing Rosh Hashanah anymore, then I think you're not doing your work the other, 52 weeks of the year. But anyway, you know what? I'm very happy to discuss my work and defend it, because I said to him, I listened to him, and I said, I'll be honest with you, with all due respect, I really don't agree. Because actually, if you listen to this routine, and there's actually no, what I would call actual jokes, I'm stating fact. This is what they do. This is what we do. This is a fact. What you take from that is up to you. But this is a fact. On New Year, they get drunk and have a great time. We spend 8 hours sitting in shul, praying and kind of saying who's going to die at his predestined time, who by fire, who by stoning, who, it's a miserable thing. It's very scary and what have you. I didn't make that up. That is a fact. I can't be accused of making this up. So anyway, the funny thing is, we discussed this. I promise this is true. It's such a great line. He said to me, okay, look, you know what? You're coming, but please, can you avoid any material about Judaism? That's like booking Richard Pryor and saying, look, can you don't mention being black, okay? That's all I've got. I've got nothing. If you've seen me, I've got nothing else. Hey, Seinfeld, listen, enough with the observations, okay? Can you do some impressions? I said, look, I'll be honest, it's going to be a short show. This is all I've got.
How did that show turn out?
That was great. I spoke to someone else and they said, don't worry, he's leaving, he's retiring.
Was the rabbi laughing at the dinner?
I looked over, I didn't think so.
Okay. I was hoping for some kind of a happy ending there, but okay. You're coming soon to America.
Yeah.
I'm really curious because this is obviously your marquee show that's going to be taking place. Are you concerned that you've made your chops in Britain and British comedy, British humor could be different than American humor often. Maybe it's a bit drier. I mean, well, you tell me, what are the distinctions that you observe between the different comedic cultures, and are you concerned about that translating?
Yeah, no, not at all. I've been doing some shows in America, but a lot of work has gone into this. The biggest challenge is, number one, is linguistic. So, this show has been through such a filter to make sure that every mobile is a cell phone, every pavement is a sidewalk, that it really, it's a trousers, a pants, and we've got all that. I've got all that in my head, and that's I even pronounce several words incorrectly for your benefit.
Can you give us an example?
I say garage instead of garage. I say amenities instead of amenities because you don't want to break up the flow. You don't want to say amenities and Trump go, what's he? Oh, amenities. You want to keep it, yeah. So every reference in it has changed. It's really right in that regard. There's a few jokes that I've noticed, just a very few kind of lines that I wouldn't do for an American audience because I know they're a little bit different. Like you're kind of less into kind of wordplay, puns, and what have you. But subject matter, this is the great thing, and is also actually funny and also sad in some respects, is that almost all the material is so universal in terms of what Jews are like, and that's what's amazing. So, for example, I've got this whole routine about driving, what Jews are like, parking, treble parking outside the shop, putting on the hazard lights, whatever. I did this in America, and somebody said to me, wow, I just thought that was just Crown Heights. I didn't realize it. I did in Israel, I've done 2 Israel tours, and someone says to me, wow, I thought that was just Beit Shemesh. I thought it just around Beit Shemesh. I didn't realize it was like that. And someone would go, I didn't realize that was like, I just thought that was Flatbush or Lakewood or Golders Green or Stamford Hill. This is what we're like. Our routine about the Jewish obsession with sushi. This is what we're like. I have this routine about, these like, you'll get on the London Underground, but you'll get them in the subway, you'll get them in New York, you'll get them everywhere. The men who wear a skull cap, a yarmulke, whatever, whatever, at work or when they're out and about, but when they travel, they put on a baseball hat. And you go,
guilty as charged.
Yeah, right. And you'll see the guy, you'll be sat on the subway or the London Underground, and you'll see some guy wearing a suit, a beard, and a baseball hat. Sometimes he's even sat there reading like the Mishnayos. He's learning like, Hebrew text. And he's wearing a baseball hat. And you think, well, men in suits don't wear baseball hats. You're clearly Jewish. There's no way you couldn't be Jewish. Because no one else would wear a baseball hat. So you're trying to avoid people knowing you're Jewish. But you've marked by the baseball hats that you're Jewish. Anyway, and the other thing I love, actually, funnily enough, and I think this is, you said talking to me about comedy. I always think the best comedy, right, the very, very best comedy, is the comedy that once you've seen it, it's impossible to ever see the world the same way again. Like Monty Python is like that. Once you've seen that, it's very hard to see certain things ever the same way again. Now, I think with stand-up, that's always what you're aiming for me. You could go to a comedy club tonight, and you will see a comedian who will have you crying with laughter. And I ask you tomorrow morning, what was he talking about? And he said, I can't remember. It didn't stay with me. The best comedy is that comedy that stays with you. Now, I'm not trying to make huge claims for myself, but what I will say is that I'm incredibly gratified, and I think I must be doing something right, when people, like years after they've seen me, will send me a photo of a really badly parked car and go, I saw this and thought of you. Or I get photos all the time. Seriously, I get photos all the time of men wearing baseball hats or sushi at an event or whatever. And people will send it to me and go, look at this, I thought of you. And I think, like, yeah, that's great. That says that, like, that has stuck with you, and you now can't see that without, having those thoughts. So that's great. I think that's great. But it shows this universal experience, this amazing universal experience we have. So you know what? You say, you're British, but you come to America. What's that like? We're Jews. We're all the same. We behave in the same way. We're all chutzpahdik. This is what we're like. We all want to get the good parking space. We all want to get a good deal. We all want to find out how much everyone's earning.
Speaking of which, actually, Ashley,
I think I've done shows where people have just gone to me, so let's counting up. I did a show, seriously, I was just about to go on stage.
300 people, $70 a ticket.
Yeah, we reckon what you're making, we're making, about $40 a ticket. There's 20 rows, and there's this. Wow, that's what we're like. So that's Jews. That happens to the whole world. That's not a British thing. That's not an American thing. That's Jews.
Actually, just in starting to wrap up, I mean, you said that a major goal of your comedy is that people should walk out perceiving the world differently. Are there any other goals that you have when somebody walks away from a show of yours? What do you want someone to walk out with? Is there some kind of deeper inspirational feeling you hope? Or is it just entertainment?
For me, it's really entertainment. That really is the bottom line. If people want to take anything else from it, then, that's great. But the aim is 100% entertainment. But people tell me all kinds of things, like that it inspired them and so on. Often people tell me, the message I get more than anything is that beyond the entertainment, is people will tell me, I felt proud. I felt proud to be Jewish. Because I think it's a really special thing. Forget observance. There's nothing to do about observance. There's something special about being proud to be Jewish. Kind of going, yeah, I felt proud. I felt like I could go out and be prouder to be Jewish. And
even though you're poking fun at many aspects of it.
That's what I'm saying. There's something very special about seeing someone who looks like me. This is a podcast. You're going, but I look like a rabbi. I look like, you don't often go to a comedy show in a big theater and see a guy wearing a black suit, white shirt, long tzitzis hanging out, strings hanging out of his pants, trousers, see, and the side locks and a big skull cap. You don't see this. That's not what you're expecting, and so that's such a kind of unusual thing. And I think, don't underestimate. Just doesn't even almost matter what I'm talking about. You say you're poking fun, but just the impact of that image is so extraordinary. But for me, no, the really important thing is entertainment, and entertainment at the most professional, of a standard that I would be happy to put my name to. That's so important to me. And that's why I'm doing something like I'm doing now, the theater, because you do a thing in a shul on like a dodgy PA, bad sound and no light. I once did a thing in a shul years ago. I turned up and I said, what are you doing with the lights? And they said, well, you got two choices, on or off. I said, well, I guess we'll have it on then. And I remember actually seriously, one of the biggest catalysts to me doing this kind of thing more seriously, like theaters and promoting and producing my own tours and whatever, was I once I did a thing in a show, and I saw on the wall this horrible poster that they'd done with like bad word clip art on it and stuff. And I just thought, no, I'm not having my name on that. Yeah, no, we'll do this properly. We'll do this properly.
Actually, just in closing, tell us how this show, this new tour, again, we're here in late May 2018. You're about to embark on this landmark tour off Broadway, on Broadway, however that works. How did it come about? How did it materialize? Has it been in the works for a long time? How does one secure a spot in that forum? And what are your expectations for this tour?
Yeah, look, I said before, I'm always looking to challenge. My wife and I are always looking to challenge ourselves. And I've done UK tours. I've performed, done 2 Israel tours, South Africa. And I did a few shows in America. But I thought, this is the next thing. It's so we'll do one show. But what about a run? So this isn't a tour, it's a run. It's like a 5-week, 35 shows. I'm doing 7 shows a week. That's 5 evenings, Sunday through Thursday, and 2 matinees, Sunday and Wednesday. Maybe no one will come. I don't know. I have no idea. This is the thing. I'm always... If you
give out free tickets, I'm sure they'll come.
Yeah, exactly.
The Jews.
Yeah, maybe. It's a free kugel as well, maybe. And free sushi. And a free parking spot. So basically, it's always challenging, thinking, that this is the next challenge. Let's see, will people come? I hope they do. Otherwise, I'll be on my own. But that's always a challenge. It's about trying, not resting on the laurels, not just going, okay, we'll do a show here, a show there. Let's do this. I would think, the people are there. As they say, if you build it, they'll come. We're there. I hope people will come. So it's great. And if people want to come, if listeners want to come, they can. So I'm starting Sunday, May 27th. Memorial Day weekend, and I'm there all the way through 5 weeks. So it's basically all the way until the end of June. So just before Fast of Thomas and the 3 week starts. So which is 28th of, I think my last show's Thursday, June 28th. And you can get tickets either on Ticketmaster or calling the theater.
Are you expecting a lot of media coverage or notoriety from it?
I hope so. in the New York Post Friday. And yeah, from both the Jewish press, but also from the non-Jewish world, are like just fascinated by this. Yeah, it's just so unusual. So I hope people are interested. By the way, Jews love a bargain. I'll tell you this, a bit of advice. So you can get tickets for the show at Ticketmaster, but it's cheaper if you want to save money. And actually, depending on how many tickets you're buying, it's quite a big saving actually. If you buy from the box office, and their phone number is 212-921-7862. That's 212-921-7862. Because then you don't have to pay all the Ticketmaster charges.
Right.
And they're quite big. It's really expensive actually, Ticketmaster. So it works out quite a saving. So, but anyway, either way, I hope people will come, and it should be really good fun. I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited.
Did you write all the material?
Oh, for sure, yeah. With a lot of inspiration from every Jew I've ever met.
Well, wonderful way to close. Ashley Blaker, comedian, on Broadway, off Broadway, or off Broadway, on Broadway, coming up. And again, for those listening to this at a later date, I'm sure you can find that show and all of his other comedy online by Googling his name. And thank you very much for joining us, Ashley Blaker.
Pleasure. Thank you.
This has been Ari Koretsky on Jews You Should Know. Please visit us at JewsYouShouldKnow.com and subscribe at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume podcasts. Find us on social media at Jews You Should Know. If you'd like to become a supporter of this podcast, we would greatly appreciate that, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Jews You Should Know. Finally, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review so that we can continue to grow and introduce many more people to Jews You Should Know.